Let's kick this off. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this panel discussion with our three young entrepreneurs who have made it really big in the real estate world. As some of you might know, I hosted a financial education webinar series for kids and teens along with my partner Anar Pitre called MoneyWise Learning a few months ago when this whole COVID situation started. This was sort of my way of doing something useful with my time because, initially the first couple of weeks, things were really shut down and nobody knew what was going on. And also I thought, what a good way to engage kids who are suddenly out of school. This primarily came from a place, I'm a landlord and I manage my own properties. So I've seen hundreds of credit reports and come to the conclusion that the lack of basic financial education is really a huge issue in our country today. And what better way to fix this than to start early with kids who are young and impressionable and teach them how to handle finances better. So a lot of teens in my financial education series, after we went through 12 weeks of it, asked me about real estate investing. And they said, hey, we really want to learn how to invest in real estate. And I do real estate. Of course, I can talk to them, but I thought it would be much more fun and more relatable for them to actually connect with a couple of people or 3 people or 4 people that I could find who have really taken that huge leap from being so young. And so our kids can get inspired to say, yes, this is possible. Yes, you can start young. Age doesn't have to be a factor to be in real estate, because honestly, I started pretty late in real estate. So I just thought along the way, I also thought this would be really interesting for adults, newbies, and experienced investors alike to learn about these awesome 3 people journey and be inspired as well. I know I'm inspired just talking to these folks. So today I'm extremely excited to host this kick-ass panel of millennials that have started in their teens and worked their way to be transacting millions of dollars in real estate in their mid-20s. Okay, all of them are in their mid-20s or younger. So today we're joined by David Toupin, co-founder of Obsidian Capital. Oops, let me skip this slide here. Chris Salerno, founder and CEO of QC Capital, and Dylan Marma, principal of Requity Group. I'm Kavita Bartake. A lot of folks know me. I'm a principal realtor and insurance broker. I have my own company called Cherry Street Investments. And today's webinar is about these young superstars of real estate. And it's actually going to be a panel style discussion. I also encourage you guys to put out your questions in your Q&A box so we can get them answered with the panel as we go along. I do have some starter questions for these panels to kick this off. So I'm excited to be, again, hosting all of you guys and ready to kick this off. So are you guys ready?
Ready.
Do it.
Awesome. So I believe that the path to success is never a straight line, right? And I'm excited to learn what you guys have gone through and share your experiences with us and our audience, not just your wins, but your challenges and your not so good moments as well. And so we can all take away lessons to apply in our own lives. So with that, I'm going to ask you guys to introduce yourselves and briefly talk about what you do. Let's start with what got you started in real estate, when you started real estate, and what do you do now? So let's start with maybe Chris, David, and Dylan in alphabetical order.
Perfect. Yeah. I'll take it away. Thank you again so much for having me. Very excited to add value to all the listeners. And thank you for everyone who's on the East Coast at 8:30. But yeah, so I started out actually in the single family space. I was a single family broker for Keller Williams, sold single family real estate here in Charlotte. Very quickly grew a small team. I merged that team with the #1 team. And I loved business. I loved how business operated. And I was always intrigued on businesses that failed and why they failed, and businesses that succeeded and why they succeeded. I just didn't read the headlines. I actually dug deeper into it on why did they fail and why did they succeed. And I merged my team with the #1 team in the Carolinas, and I dug my head into their P&L, or T12, as we call it in the multifamily business. But I dug my head in there and I'm like, why are we spending this money? Let's cut expenses. Let me train the sales agents. And I did that, and we were able to be 46% profitable in 1 year. When I left, we were at 146 million in annual sales with over 700 homes sold as a team. And very excited about that. But I really realized, and I took a step back, and I felt like I hit the ceiling. And I said, playing the game Monopoly, you don't broker real estate, you buy the real estate. And I said, this is what I need to do. So I studied before 08 to 2012, what asset class was the strongest and what asset class recovered the quickest. And from my studying, it was multifamily. So I said, this is the asset class I'm going to be an expert in. So I started listening to podcasts, reading books, hopping into private Facebook groups and just reading people's comments and what they're posting just so I can soak up as much knowledge as possible. I was a sponge. From that, I then found and sought a mentor. Once I sought a mentor, his name's Joe Fairless. I'm in this private group, which I'm very excited to be in. I just scaled the business very quickly. I learned very quickly. I try not to make mistakes, but I know I do, and I know there are a lot that will be coming. But I limit them by having a mentor and by surrounding myself with successful people. So if I come to a mistake, I can just brainstorm with them and they can help me push through it. But that's how I got into the multifamily business. I then pivoted everything. We still do syndications, but we just launched a $350 million real estate fund, which we're very excited about. And we'll use that capital to buy in Texas and in the Carolinas.
Awesome. And Chris, how old were you when you got started in real estate?
Real estate in general, I was around 21 years old when I got started.
You got a lot done in the last 4 years or 5 years.
Yeah, very, very quickly. And as in my later teens, I mean, I was told that I was dyslexic. I mean, the teachers at my school said, you need to go to special reading classes, but I wasn't interested in what they were giving me. And once I started picking up real estate books, now I can read a real estate book, a 300-page book in less than a week because I love it. I have a passion for it. And that's how I grew so quickly.
Awesome. Great story. David, you want to go next?
Yeah, for sure. Hey, nice to meet everybody. Thank you all for coming in and watching tonight. So I'm Dave Toupin, co-founder of Obsidian Capital and CEO of a software company called Real Estate Lab as well. I'm 24. I started buying real estate when I was 20 years old. I think like a lot of people, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And for me, that set me on a path that I'm forever grateful for. So basically started listening to podcasts, reading books, like a lot of people. I was 18, 19 years old. I was in college doing some internships in investment banking and finance. And I just really had always been an entrepreneur. Started my first business when I was 13, actually, as a landscaping company. Sold that off when I went to college. And then, did a little bit of time doing some of those corporate internships, figured out it wasn't for me. I had all these limiting beliefs. I thought that I had to go get a high paying job first and then use that money to buy real estate. So I always wanted to do real estate. And then I figured out really you don't have to do that. There's enough people that go straight into it and go straight into real estate. And so it wasn't a necessity for me. So on the last day of one of my internships, I had a 6-figure job offer. I turned it down on the spot. I knew I had to burn the bridge and there was no other way. If I didn't burn the bridge behind me, for me, there's nowhere else to go but forward. So I had to do that. There's basically no other option but succeeding. And so I did that and continued on, did single family for about 6 months. I had a mentor who flipped a lot of homes, worked with him, was wholesaling, helping him flip some homes, and really decided that was not making me happy. I really did not like single family. I wanted to do multifamily. I wanted to do commercial real estate, big deals, multi-million-dollar projects. And so that's pretty much what I did. And I know it's easier said than done, but I set my mind to it and I said, I'm going to focus on doing just that. And I'm not going to stop until I get my first deal. And so took a couple months, but I closed on my first property. It's 12 units. I closed on that within like 5 months of starting to look at deals. Actually closed on 12 units at the same time. So it was 24. And I raised a couple $100,000. I had like $5,000 in my bank account. The acquisition fee for one of them was the biggest check I'd ever seen. It was like $15,000. And so, that was great. I self-managed those. The next deal I did was 100 units, and I raised almost $2 million when I was 21 to buy that. I sold it in 2 years and got the investors a 45% internal rate of return, almost doubled their money in under 2 years. I lived in that, house hacked it. The manager quit one day in the morning. I stepped in on site for 2 months, and I was the on-site manager leasing units, and I was showing tenants around, and I was fixing toilets and doing maintenance around the property. So I've had a big breadth of experience in a lot of different ways. So, fast forward a couple of years, I've bought a little over 900 apartments, a little over $80 million in real estate as a key principal. And I'm doing my first big wholesale next month. I'm wholesaling a deal for a 7-figure check. So pretty excited about that. So, I'm kind of getting into a lot of different aspects of the business. So, yeah, I love it. It's all I do. Real estate. I eat, breathe, and sleep real estate, and happy to be here and helping out some other young people.
Oh, we are happy to have you and can't wait to hear more. Dylan, take it away.
Well, I think there's a lot to learn from both your stories. So definitely great stuff. And I have questions to follow up on that. And I think I just want to comment, Kavitha, on the purpose of the webinar tonight. I think if there's anything that I'm passionate about, it's definitely being able to help young people grow and get into, get the financial education they need. I think that's I think as a country, that's the single thing we could do to improve the country at the highest level is reform modern day education. So I think it's, just want to say, I appreciate you holding this and everyone joining. I think it's a great mission, great purpose behind this. So for my story, and I'll tell kind of the story of mine that, that relates to people that are younger, kind of starting off, say back in high school. I grew up in a middle-class family. My dad was a recruiter, worked on Wall Street, and a lot of my family did. I'm from upstate New York initially. And that's what I saw. That was the normal that I knew, was go and get your CPA license. It was preached to me left and right to go work for a company and then grow, kind of climb the corporate ranks until you can get into like a nice, comfortable, 7-figure position in Wall Street one day. Right. And that was my vision of success for a long time. I grew up doing a lot of, hard labor, like construction work on the summers. Like I was working my butt off for 12-hour days for like $10 an hour. And I think that's where I really started to learn the value of a dollar. And then I always knew that, I was going to work hard in school so that I could go and one day get that corporate job that was going to lead me to that vision of success. So I went off to school in SUNY Albany, which is like a big party school for New York. So that was part of my life at that time. And I had a blast up there, was, president of the fraternity and was doing everything right, getting good grades and off to a good start in college. And I took like the most radical decision I made, which shocked a lot of my peer group and my family, which was I dropped out of school after 2 years. And I said, well, things look good on paper right now. I'm going out and drinking all the time. And my day-to-day routines were just not success habits, right? And I knew that I needed to start to mold myself into the person that I needed, and surround myself with the people I needed to be around to create a level of success that I wanted for myself in my future. And it just wasn't leading me, that whole path was just not leading me to that level of fulfillment that I was hoping it would. So I actually left and I picked up, shortly after leaving, I was exploring different business models and like David mentioned, Rich Dad Poor Dad's a book that definitely turned me on. If you haven't read it, definitely go read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I got turned on to real estate investing after, a little bit of experimenting with different types of, entrepreneurial ventures. And I picked up a one-way ticket to go to San Diego. I read a book called Choose Yourself by James Altucher, which is all about creating that lifestyle by design. So I picked up and I left out to San Diego, not knowing what I wanted to do, not knowing what I was going to do, but knowing I was going to get into real estate some way, somehow. And then someone referred me to work for a real estate investment and education company. And it was right in Pacific Beach, San Diego, right by the beach. So I said, well, I can live by the beach and work at this company and be around a lot of good mentors. The guy that was running it was 40 years old and worth 100 million. And, so between him and the other people I was working in the office with, it was a great platform for me to be around successful people and start to learn how they think and start to learn how they invest and whatnot. So then at 21 years old, I bought my first rental property. And then that was it was single family property. I was out of state, not in California. And then I followed that up with a duplex. And they were very straightforward, kind of turnkey rental properties. At that time, I was working 70 hours a week. So I just needed something that was going to give me some cash flow, kind of got me familiarized with how that worked. And I realized that I hit a path. I was on a path where I could see very clearly where I would be at 30 years old if I had stuck to that job and kind of stuck to that path of picking up a rental property every year. And it's actually perfect timing to go over this, because I could see where I would be at 30 years old following that linear progression if everything went well, but things did not go well. And that company has taken a big hit, and through actually recently in the past few months. So I would have probably been out of a job right now if I'd stuck to that path and didn't take the big risks that I took. And, I'd have maybe a few rentals, a couple $100 or a couple $1,000 in a month for cash flow to show for it, right? For all that dedication. So the risk that I took was after buying those two properties, I said, this isn't going to get me there fast enough. So I started to save up a ton of money and research everything I possibly could about multifamily syndication. I found a mentor. I think that's probably similar, something we all share. We all, you need to have mentors. I just got off a call with him. Actually, Vinny Chopra was early mentor to me. Met him on Facebook. So just don't be scared to reach out and ask and talk to people. And, he taught me a whole lot. So I moved out to Atlanta. To be in the Southeast and to go start chasing down deals. Ended up doing 21 units as my first multifamily deal, which I did that with a few JV partners. And then I ended up from there starting to partner with, a group that had experience, but they had not done any syndication. And that was my value add to the partnership, was I was going to help us expand out of state, be the sweat equity and also, handle the whole syndication aspect of the business. So, so then I did that. And from there, at this point, I've done about 500 units in syndication. And for anyone listening that doesn't know syndication, we're just basically talking about raising other people's money to buy the deals and partnering with equity partners. And then I've done a bunch of joint ventures, and joint ventures are just kind of more straightforward partnerships where, we invest money together and we just hold the deal long-term. So, but yeah, that's where I am today.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I think as you guys were talking, a question popped up in my mind, because I think the audience might be thinking this too. It sounds like all of you guys started using other people's money at some point. I kind of want to understand how that transition happened and how you learned about, it's not something very normal to learn about how to use other people's money, because people think you need to have money to buy real estate. And that's a huge blocker for a lot of people, because it's kind of like a limiting belief, if you will, where they think if I don't have money, I can't really buy a house. If I can't buy a house, I can't really do real estate. So how did you go from that? How do you make that transition from, hey, I don't have to have a lot of money, but I can leverage other people's money. So what brought about that? You could go.
Yeah.
Just anybody take it.
I had no money.
Yeah.
I had to buy real estate. It wasn't an option. I'm sure it's probably the same for you guys.
Yeah, I think David hit it earlier too, and this is what I do all the time, is you put your back against the wall. When your back's against the wall, you're going to find out how to make it work. I mean, you're just going to. Human nature, your mind is set to survive, and you're going to find out how to get it done. And you're going to start thinking outside the box. For me personally, I bought my first one, no money down. I had a very good friend of mine who was a client, he bought single family rentals when I was a broker. And he called me up when I was in that transition to going into multifamily. He's like, I have about 1.2 million. I want to buy more single family properties. And I was like, let's hold on now. I'm going to talk to you about multifamily. I'm going to educate you on how multifamily works. And I started educating him about it. And I said, look, would you be willing to give me a personal line of credit to me? We'll sign a contract for, it was like $260,000. And I said, personal line of credit. If I lose it, I'll pay you back within 2 years. We signed a legal contract, everything. And he knew what I was doing. He knew I was taking that to put it down as a hard money. I put it down hard money day one for a property. And I think that was like a $2.1 million raise. and partnered with some great partners on that deal, and we were able to successfully raise it. I lost sleep a couple times during that because it was a lot of money.
Probably more than a couple.
Yeah. But we were successful with it, and now he loves us and he just hits me up all the time. He has buddies, and he's a big CEO and president of a big, large public energy company, which I'm just thankful that I've built relationship. But to get him, I called him every 2 weeks for 8 months straight when I was a single family broker to try to get him as a client. And I never gave up, and I stayed consistent. And he finally picked up after that 8 months, and he says, I'm picking up because you've been so consistent and you've been calling me. Let's go out and buy rentals. And then 2 years later, I converted him to a multifamily space, and now he won't even buy a single family rental. So,
wow,
that's awesome.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah, you got to put your back against the wall, like you said. And you know, I bought my first $10 million of real estate from a bedroom of my parents' house. All right. I mean, you know, I think people are afraid because what other people think of them sometimes. I got made fun of. I was in the same situation as Dylan. The first 2 years of college for me were spent partying my face off and having fun. And then I realized, hey, this is not going to get me where I want to go. It's time to switch it up. So I changed up my group of friends. I lost all those friends and made new ones in the industry. And I lived at my parents' house, and I fortunately didn't have to pay rent, and I kept my expenses low. I lived off of like $1,000 a month, and I did little things on the side to make money to pay for my car and stuff like that. And I basically just wrote it out as long as I could. And so if you have the opportunity to do something like that, or at the very least just live below your means, go for it. And you'll be surprised at what you can accomplish in 6 months, let alone 12 months or 2 years. I bought all those properties, a couple hundred units with no money out of my own pocket. And that's very possible.
Yeah. And I think just a lot of the things that we've been able to do, at least for me, I've taken a lot of risks that I would never have been able to take. This was 10 years from now in my life, just in terms of like, if I was in my 30s and, further ahead, I wouldn't have been able to say I had like a family established and I was further along the lines and I had more responsibilities. I wouldn't have been able to like leave the job and take this chance to go to Atlanta, or you might not be able to live in your
less
parents'
risk taking.
You might not, your parents might not be, want you to move back in when you're 35 for as long as but they might be comfortable with that when you're 20 and you're kind of getting off your feet, right?
Sure.
So just definitely take advantage of the fact that you have this extra time. And I think don't be scared to mess up and make mistakes during this time, because that's what it's all about just getting in the game one way or another.
Yeah. The traditional mindset will, and the people that are, a lot of parents for people our age, they're going to tell you that it's not worth taking the risk now. It's so backwards. It's not worth taking the risk now. Go make some money, get a job, and then take the risk later.
Yeah.
And that mindset is what's going to put you in a cycle of never doing anything. Now is the time to take the risk.
Yeah.
Maybe
when
a little bit of student loan.
Oh, you could afford to lose everything you have.
Well, time out.
Which is nothing.
Time out. I got a newborn and I'm a stepdad. So
there you go.
And I got a beautiful fiance. But I wanted to touch on that too, is that, one thing that Dylan said, one thing that David said, it's mindset. Like I said, I have a newborn, I have a fiance, and I love them to death, but they motivate me every morning when I pick up my newborn before I go to work. I am working my butt off because I have to provide for them.
Yep.
And I have huge goals for the company, so I'm going to do whatever it takes. But
that was one of my questions. So you're stealing one of my questions.
No, we'll get to it. Sorry. We'll get
it's
to
okay.
It.
I'm just kidding.
I think communication is key with them. And I think they understand with communication. I mean, I wake up at 5 a.m. and I'm in the office before 7, and I work 13, 14-hour days. And as long as I communicate with them and say, look, Monday through Friday, I am at work. Don't bother me. Send me pictures of you guys having fun, but I'm in my zone. Saturday, I work in the mornings, but Saturday evening and Sunday, you have me. That's
100%.
100. I try. I'm so addicted to real estate.
And that's something to note. That's something to note too. Like all three of us, we work our butt off. Like it doesn't stop, right? Like
Yeah.
every single, at least for, for me, and I think it's for you guys as well, maybe it's 13 hours on the weekends, you make your time, everyone kind of operates a little differently, but every single day is a work day, right? I think getting rid of that whole thing of like, oh, it's a school day, it's not a school day, as you're transitioning into the workforce, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to like completely shift. It's a big paradigm shift to look at time differently and realize that it's all time that you can be pouring into the business and all time 100%. To be growing. And you have to be ready to spend at least a few years
you have to
catch momentum, and make some serious, sacrifices.
Yeah. And touch on what David said. I mean, you have to sacrifice. And even Instagram is your worst nightmare. That is your worst enemy, because you see people with Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and you're like, I want to live that life. Let me go buy something and try to live that lifestyle when you're not ready yet. You're going to sacrifice. You need to sacrifice.
Don't follow those losers.
No.
follow Real Estate Jedi. That's what you follow. No, he's very right too. And I agree with you.
So, what I'm hearing is a lot of passion, like common, right? I'm looking at the three of you and going, it's amazing amount of passion, mindset,
I'm so excited.
motivation, surrounding yourself. I loved what David said, he had to change his friends, like kids on the call, remember, listen to this, right?
Oh.
Like who you surround yourself with matters. If your parents are behind your back to stop talking to that friend of yours, it's because they really want you to surround yourself with someone who's going to change your life in a better way.
Yep.
So.
Agreed. Don't hang out with losers. It's okay. They're going to tempt you, and it may seem cool, but it's not cool.
I was nagged about that my whole life growing up, and then now I look back and it's like, oh, I should have listened, right? But
it's always like that.
You totally have to, in a lot of cases, recreate your whole friend group, right? And just find peers that align with you, because we're actually the mindset that we have and the mindset that you take in getting into real estate entrepreneurship it's actually a minority mindset, right? Most people don't think like this, and they aren't focused on success, and they aren't focused on, taking positive actions to improve themselves in all areas. So you're gonna have to find that circle that aligns with that.
I 100% agree with the book Think and Grow Rich. Andrew Carnegie says, surround yourself and mastermind. And I'm sure if I ask David, his closest 5 friends, they all have their same goal to align with each other. I know my 5 friends, we all want to become billionaires. So we're pushing each other to get there. And obviously they're older and one's closer to doing it, but all of them, we have that same goal. So we're going to push each other to reach that goal.
Right. And they say you're the average of 5 people you surround yourself with the most, right?
You're going to be scared at first too, especially if you're young. Let's say you're in like high school or college, right? Everyone's going to pressure you. It's going to be weird. Like I when I first started, I was posting about, me in front of like an apartment complex, or I was posting Instagram, Facebook posts about like what I'm doing, trying to motivate people. And I would come around all my old friends and they'd be like, oh, look, it's businessman Dave. Like, oh, businessman Dave coming around. And, I would get that stuff. And it's like, you're friends with like if you're a young dude, you got girls you're friends with online. It's like, they don't, it's not cool to be posting that stuff. But at the same time, in my head, it's like, I don't really care. I don't give a shit what these people think, because in a couple years, 3 years later, you got all the ladies. No, I'm just kidding. So it's you really have to focus on not caring what other people think, and you have to focus on your goals and surround yourself with good people.
Okay, awesome. I think I totally got off my script, but that's okay. I still learned a lot. So I have a question for you guys. So as a woman, I've been in 2 industries. Like I've been in male-dominated technology and then real estate. So I felt like I always had to prove myself and earn my seat at the table. So my question for you guys is, can you share with us your struggles in being taken seriously? Because I can imagine a 20-year-old shows up, wants to buy a 22-year-old even, wants to buy $1 million complex or $10 million complex. What does that look like? I mean, was age ever an issue? Was it ever a factor whether people judge you a certain way or dismiss you? How did you deal with it, and how did you overcome it?
I love that question. So was it an issue? I don't think it was an issue. I want to revert back to knowledge is power. And if you have knowledge, you're also confident. in what you're speaking about. No matter what product, if you're selling a product, if it's real estate, if you have the knowledge about it, you feel confident. I'm sure everybody here can feel all of our passion because we know what we're talking about. We're confident about it. So growing that knowledge, I knew I used to wear suits 24/7, and I love suits. And I have a funny story on how I got into my first meetup in a suit, but now I mimic not my competition, but I mimic my meetings. If I'm going to meet a banker or a very high pension fund or institutional investor, I'm going to wear a suit. But a retail investor, I'm not necessarily going to wear a suit. So it all depends. But
Chris, you got to tell the story now. You got to tell the suit story.
All right. So I real quick, when I was getting into the business, I knew that meetups and I love to network. And here's a good tip. If you go to a networking conference or a meetup, go alone because you're willing to network. You're willing to talk to people. I'm an introvert. I went there alone. So I'm not going to stand awkwardly. I'm going to go and try to talk to people. So I walked in and I had a 3-piece suit on, pinstripe, and I see multifamily event, and I see everybody in flip-flops, t-shirts, shorts. So I'm looking around and I'm thinking I'm walking into a Blackstone board meeting. I'm ready to go. And I'm like, I'm here for the multifamily event. And they're like, well, you're here. I'm like, no, like they buy multifamily property, multifamily, we're going to discuss it. And they're like, no, this is it. And I'm like, all right, well, and out of that event, I came up contacting with Joe Fairless, my coach now. So that was the story. But I think the big thing is knowledge is power. And I've been into some meetings where first they see me and they know I'm young, but then when I start to speak about business, that goes out of their head. They don't even care my age. They don't even care how young I am. Now they want to talk business. And when they see the knowledge that I bring to the table, they're like, wow, okay, now we're going to discuss business. So I think that helped is really, I always say is if you join the military, that first week's called Hell Week. And what they do in that first week is they tear your brain down mentally and they build you up into a soldier. So if you're getting into the real estate space, that's what you need to do. Just wipe it out and be a sponge. Soak up as much information as possible. And then from there, start growing off that because you're going to get the confidence. You're going to be able to hold conversations. And when you talk to brokers or investors, they're going to feel that and they're going to know that you know what you're talking about. And age is just going to be relevant in the conversation.
That's amazing. I love it. Like Hell Week, wipe it out and be a sponge and, show that authority, right? Like when you're knowledgeable, you can be authoritative about it.
Oh yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think in the past 4 years, I mean, maybe I'm just so oblivious to it. Or I just don't care, but yeah. I can't name a single instance where somebody's brought up my age. Like Chris said, they might, and I look like I'm 18 still. I look like a baby.
You do. I saw you the first time and I was like,
who the heck is this kid?
I have
looks like a high schooler.
I have exactly. One script. I have one script that I use on everyone when they're saying like, "Oh, you look young." Yeah, that means we can do business for the next decade.
Yeah,
instead
exactly.
of if I was 60 or 70, who knows? So you talk about long term.
If you know what you're talking about, people get it. I'm one of my best deals ever I did with a guy who's 72 years old, owned $1 billion in real estate. He gave me the deal because I was young. He said I reminded him of himself when he was my age, and that got me the deal. And that made me my first $500,000 check. And so that it's guys like that love young people.
Yeah, I built a relationship with a gentleman that was a developer. And he sold me his last property, 100% seller finance on a $5.5 million deal, right? Probably helped being young because he probably saw that I was young and ambitious, reminded me of who he was in his 20s, right? So,
awesome.
So there are those instances, but yeah, I completely can echo these guys. It's actually weirder for me being around people my age and being around other people than it is people that are in 30s and 40s. Like it's weird. Like we were on a call. We did a call. Was it last week? As we did a call with a bunch of people in their 20s. And I said, "Wow, this call feels like really strange because I'm so
used to everybody being twice your age."
Yeah, yeah. It's so true. I mean, so you're actually, it's a rarity to be young in this space, but it's awesome. I mean, I love it. And like Chris said, we have a long runway. So I think you always have to look at that, but as long as you know your stuff, that's the biggest thing. I read voraciously, and that's, I think, always helped me big time, because even before I did my first deal, I feel like I knew like the bulk of what there is to know in this space, the bulk of the book knowledge. There's a million things you're going to keep learning. I'm still learning always, but I mean, having that like foundation helps tremendously. So.
Right. I love that. Young and hungry and knowledge. I truly believe that, right? Like when you are authoritative and you can speak to something knowledgeably, people instantly like, oh, wait a minute, they know what they're talking about, right? It's all
Confidence.
about that. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. Awesome.
Fake
So,
it till you make it a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that.
yes. Yeah. And that's very important because sometimes you walk into situations where you don't probably know everything you need to know, but the fact that you can fake it till you make it and
be confident.
Yes, exactly.
Fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it, but don't be afraid to ask dumb questions.
Yeah.
Like I love asking the stupid questions, even if like I'm 50% sure I know it. Just ask it. At first, that's how you're gonna learn everything. Yeah.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Agreed. All right. So the next question for you guys, this whole COVID situation, social isolation, impact to almost every industry has not been easy for all of us. So different people cope with it differently. And I've seen different people around me like doing different things. So I was listening this morning to Rod Cleef at a virtual conference, and he always inspires me. He's always fired up and he's like ready to go. And he's got this wise, and I'm like, yes. So I truly believe that mindset is most of what determines someone's success, right? Knowledge is there. All of that good stuff is important, but mindset is super important. So I would love you to, all of you to share with our audience how you keep yourself motivated, how you pull yourself out of periods of self-doubt or setbacks that you might have. And how important do you think mindset has been to your journey? Because I really want our audience to learn about how important mindset is in this whole game, whether it's real estate or anything, any business venture you do, how important you think mindset is. So you can go in any order. You don't have to go in a specific order.
I love that. What I said earlier about Hell Week. What do? They tear down your mind and they build them up into a soldier. That's what you need to do. I'm 100% about mindset. If you ask me if the world is ending, how's my day? It's amazing. It could be raining and people are like, how's your day? It's amazing. Every day is a great day. And mindset is very powerful. It brings you energy. It brings you confidence. So cultivating that mindset, I do a couple things. I meditate in the morning and in the evening. And it's zero distractions. It's just me. I think about business. I think about everything during that time. And I cultivate that mindset. One thing I do is as entrepreneurs, I always say that you can't be the cop and the robber of your time, which means is that as an entrepreneur, you feel that you can do whatever, or your spouse or your significant other feels, hey, oh, you're working from home, you can clean the dishes, or you can watch the kids, or you can do laundry, you can do that. But so one thing I do is that I have a set time I wake up, and I have a set time I have to be at the office. If I'm running late, I'll tell my family that I'm going to get fired from work. My boss is going to yell at me, and I need to get there. I'm my own boss, but I tell myself that so I can get to work on time. But I've done things where if I was a minute late, I would donate $1,000 to our local humane society. Like I've done, because money motivates me. It motivates a lot of people as an entrepreneur, and especially in real estate. And I don't like to lose it. So not necessarily losing it in a bad way, but you're doing it in a good way. But that also helps motivating. But it's very important to cultivate that mindset, to really have it as a positive mindset. Look at 2009 to 2012. You had Airbnb that got started. Let's change that real quick. Look at the .com crash. Look at 1990. All those large recessions and large crashes, Apollo Global, which is a large private equity firm, has over 500 billion assets under management, was created. BlackRock, Blackstone, KKR, Carlyle, they were all created during a recession or a crash. So during this time, you need to have a positive outlook on life, and especially on your business, and you should hone in on your systems and soak up as much knowledge as possible. But mindset, in my opinion, is 100. It's very important to have a strong mindset.
David?
Man, staying motivated. I don't know. I feel like for as long as I know, it's like I feel like it's in my blood almost. And
Do you
I
ever
don't know if
wake up and feel like, I feel like
uh,
crap today? Come
honestly,
on.
for years and years, it's really weird. I really don't. It's very rare.
What
Uh,
excites you when you wake up every morning?
I love doing deals. That's like my passion. I love big problems. I love big checks. I love helping lots of people. I love impacting people. And so I guess for me, what motivates me though is always having another big goal to work towards.
Mhm.
The only time I am not happy is or I'm not motivated is when I'm not doing something or working towards my goals. I seriously can't take a vacation for more than 5 days, or I get really bad anxiety. Seriously, I get really anxious, and people hate being around me because I can't like focus because I need to be back working. And it's weird. It's I think it's a good problem to have, but
Real estate
for
withdrawal
as long as I
symptoms.
remember. Yeah,
No,
real
it's
estate
Real
serious.
withdrawal.
estate
Yeah,
withdrawal.
exactly.
I
It's
relate.
seriously an addiction.
I have them every day.
Addiction. Oh my gosh. And so, yeah, so I have a lot of fun though in between. I make sure like I do take time off. I travel a lot. I think I'm in a different city almost every week. I was on over 100 flights last year. I'm always moving around, like looking at deals, meeting people, going on trips. But I definitely stay very motivated by working with people that I like, working with good people. So I know that I can, people I trust. So I really don't lose sleep over having bad business partners ever, because I've gone through that in the past where I've had bad business partners. I've gotten screwed out of deals. I've had bad things happen. So I've restructured my life to where I only work with people that I like, that I know, and that I trust. And so I think that's a huge thing. And so I'm never losing sleep over that kind of stuff. And then I stay very lean in my business and in my life, my personal life. I have no overhead, no personal debt. And so I do that because I don't want to ever be in a position where I'm always worrying about, paying the next bill. And so I feel like because I've structured my life in that way, I can always like stay really happy and jolly, and like always, because it's important to me to impact and motivate people around me. And so if I'm down, they're going to be down. A lot of people see me as a leader in the community. And so if I need to always stay on top of it and stay motivated, because I need everyone around me to grow and everyone around me to do great. And so I feel like I have a responsibility to always be on it. And so, yeah, there's mornings I'm not up like Chris though, 5 a.m. every day, man. I do. Sometimes I don't start working till 9:30, but then that night I'll work till midnight or 1 a.m. So it's different every day.
I love some of the things you said. You work with, I've had partners too, and, partnerships going wrong. It's important, very important to work with people that you like, know, and trust. Super important. And I also like the fact that, if you're a leader, your job is to motivate the people around you, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's super important. And also, I like that you stay lean in your business and personal life, because a lot of people, I find that as they get more successful, they just pile on more things into their life, and it just takes away energy, right? Like takes away from your life so much.
It does.
Like I've found a lot of happiness just cleaning up, even if it's cleaning up physically, like the clutter.
Yeah.
Cleaning up, emotionally. So
Yeah.
that's really important. I love
Agreed.
that. Dylan.
Yeah. So I've tried all sorts of things, as far as I do a number of kind of daily rituals, we'll call them, to kind of keep myself in good headspace and get myself ready for each day. Reading's the number one thing for me. I definitely feel like I'm a big believer in the whole Abe Lincoln quote. If you had 6 hours to cut down a tree, he'd spend the first 5 sharpening his axe. And I really believe that if you're not reading every day or every week, you're moving backwards a lot of times, or you're not using. I think reading can be the best investment of time. And it gets really, really hard. Don't get me wrong. When we get super busy and we're in the middle of big deals and things like that, you have to be very intentional and make time for that. But I think it's one of the greatest things that we can be doing. And I say reading, going back to the mindset thing, because I think if I was giving advice to someone that's younger, getting started, you have to work on yourself first and really become the person you need to be to go and run the business yourself. So that starts with reading all the basics. I think a lot of the basic personal development stuff for me was essential to kind of getting myself in a mindset where I was goal oriented, where I was ritual oriented, habit oriented. I had good self-talk. I've even read books on just self-talk. What do you say when you talk to yourself? I think your own belief in yourself and your own the affirmations that we say to ourselves, whether consciously or subconsciously, are extremely important. So I would recommend, starting with the mindset stuff, just, reading, or if you don't like to read, maybe just go on YouTube or podcast or learn to like to read and get through a lot of this. Yeah, exactly. Audiobooks. Right. And get through a lot of the foundational mindset stuff and find people that you resonate with that you can go and anchor back to kind of, recharge yourself whenever you need that. I think that's one of the best ways to start. And then outside of that, just the basic stuff, eat a good diet, exercise well, routinely. I'm big into meditation as well, as Chris mentioned. I like doing a little transcendental meditation each morning. I think and then lastly, like David mentioned, just having clear goals, writing out your goals and being crystal clear on what it is that you want to achieve, and then stop comparing yourself to anyone else and just kind of stay focused on your own thing.
That's amazing.
Agreed.
I don't know that at 25 I was so goal oriented. So hats off to you guys. Also, I love that you all what I see in common between all is you're super disciplined, right? Whether you wake up at 5 or 10, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But you're super disciplined about how you lead your life, right? And that really is a holistic thing. It's not like you're just good in real estate. You take care of yourself with the other aspects of your life. And that's what really keeps your motivation level high, your energy level going as well. I mean, of course, you're working in something you're really super passionate about, that helps. But it's all these other things that you do. And I found that myself, although I didn't start as early as you guys, that having that routine and having taking care of myself in the different aspects of my life was more important than, yes, I need to learn real estate, I need to do these, but other things keep me motivated and going when things don't always work in your favor, right? Like there are setbacks and there are times when things don't go well. So coming to setbacks, so how do you guys handle setbacks? Like challenges are a part of our journey, right? And as I said earlier, success never looks like a straight line. It just looks right now like you guys are all successful. You're in your mid-20s, but I'm sure you went through a lot of challenges. So talk to us and the audience about some of the biggest challenges you've had, or maybe one of the biggest challenges you've had, and how you overcame that challenge. It could be personal, it could be business, it doesn't really matter.
I have too many to count.
Well, I guess I'll
you want to go, Chris?
Yeah,
you can go, Dylan.
Sure. So yeah, I think starting off, a relatable challenge I think everyone faces at first when they're getting into the space is just simple rejection from peers and family. When either for me it was leaving school was a huge one, naturally, and I'm not advising people leave school. I was just young, hungry, and 2 years felt like eternity when you're 19 years old. So that was the reality of it. And then the same thing goes with leaving a W-2 to kind of pursue and double down on the real estate investing side of things. You're always going to hear chirping in your ear, whether it be from friends or family. And I think you just have to just learn to tune it out completely and really listen to yourself and listen to your mentors. If you have mentors that you trust in that have the results that are, people that you want to lead life similar, then listen to them. So I think number one, those are some of the foundational challenges that you're going to go through. And then two, I think, it can give you a laundry list of challenges that I've had on existing deals or previous deals or deals not going through. And I mean, it's a never ending process. But I actually think one thing that early on I did too much was kind of beat myself up over the challenges that were taking place in the present. And I think over time, you realize that in each of these challenges provides the best learning opportunities that we're ever going to have. The most painful deals that I've had are the deals that I've learned by far the most on. And you don't forget those lessons because, you're emotionally impacted by them during the time period of it happening. So then you're able to, but you need to pause, reflect, and then go through and say, okay, what can I do differently to avoid this next time around? So I think just being okay with the challenges and being okay with setbacks, I think is super important.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think what I do is no matter what situation, the world can be ending right now. I will find the positive out of it. I will just seek the positive, and if it is a setback, well, okay, it's a setback, but what did I learn from it? Okay, I learned something. This is what I learned. Now I'm not going to make that mistake again. And I think that rolls back to is mindset. And then also knowledge. Knowledge is power. How you create these deals and put these deals together, or even partnerships, JV partnerships or anything like that, you need to have the knowledge, so you know how everything's structured. So you're not getting the short end of the stick, and it's a win-win situation for everyone. So I think that's tremendously important, is to really gain the knowledge and always seek the positive when it comes into any situation, because there is always something that's positive out of it.
I agree with Chris. I feel like I'm the same way. Everything I feel like I'm strangely happy in a lot. Some people are like, dude, why are you never mad about anything? I feel like it's because I just chew it to the side. I always say, expect problems and eat them for breakfast, because it's gonna happen. Listen, life is a game of expectations versus reality. And the reality is you got to expect problems to happen. And if you don't expect problems to happen, you're going to hate your life. Seriously. Real estate entrepreneurship is in general as a whole is a freaking roller coaster of ups and downs and ups and downs. And I talk about this all the time. And if you properly can manage, I swear this is the moment that I became super, super powerful in my mind, was the moment I learned to control my emotions in business. Because something can be going so phenomenally well one day, you got the greatest deal verbally committed to, it's lined up, it's going to happen, you're counting your paycheck 3 months out, it's going to be great. The next day, boom. Somebody else comes in, swoops it up, puts a larger earnest money deposit and takes the deal from you. Oops, sorry. It's gone. It's business. And so when that happens, you get down in the bottom of the dumps, and it's like the higher you let yourself get, the lower you get. I swear, the higher you get, the lower you get. So I learned to not get too high.
I think entrepreneurship is just like your lows are lows. Like, I think there needs to be like an AA meeting for entrepreneurs, because your lows are like really low.
Well, no, this is the solution. The solution is to never get too high. When I started figuring out when things were great, I stayed level-headed. I acted as if everything was going to fall apart, and I pushed it hard, just, as if it was going to go through. But in my head, I already played out every scenario as if it's going to fall apart. I started freaking rocking and rolling like crazy. I swear I rocket ship to the moon because I felt so powerful, because nothing could affect me. There was no lag if something went wrong. I literally, from a deal blowing up, I'm already on to the next, and I don't even care, because I'm ready. And so don't let yourself get too high. And I think
you just touched on a good part there. It's mindset. If you have that mindset, knowing something bad's going to happen, and create options to fix it, find the good. I mean, you'll be able to, create that line where it's stagnant and not get too high.
Yeah, I learned early on in sales that it was an old saying, it was set it and forget it, right? Once you've kind of set up the appointment, or you put it out there, just forget about it and don't get so emotionally attached to it. And I think that's one of the key things. I try to make a value of mine equanimity, which is just staying level-headed the whole time, right? You can't let yourself go up there and get too attached to anything.
Yeah, and I was just going to mention that, that's a very basic concept of Buddhism, right? You don't swing, right? When you swing like the pendulum, your highs are really high and your lows are really low, and you maintain that, we call it madhyam marg, which is the middle ground. Or what you call equanimity, right? And there's a question about this. How can you be happy, David, if you don't let yourself get high on happiness?
Yeah. You just got to stay a little bit above that line, right? Yeah. So you're happy. Yeah. And it's like, okay, then everything's always good. And that's why you asked me before, like, you never get down. I'm like, no, I don't, because I've had probably a million things go wrong, but I just don't remember them because I don't focus on that.
And I think you're anticipating problems and you are ready for problems. You're like, okay, you're not expecting it to be smooth sailing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because your expectations are already
Correct.
built up to the point like,
Yep.
okay, there are going to be problems. We'll figure them out.
Exactly. And look, I'm not saying I don't get bummed. I had a deal in January where we were literally, it took me 3 months. I spent $20,000 in legal fees and we were going to sign on a great deal. And the last day, a broker got in the seller's ear and said that they can get more for the property than what I was willing to pay them and what they had agreed upon, and they could. And so the seller backed out and the deal fell apart on the last day. I worked 3 months for it. So, imagine if I hadn't already played that scenario out in my mind, that would have been the only deal I was working on.
Yeah.
Good thing I had 5 more ready to go when that thing fell apart. So.
I think you have to under promise and over deliver with yourself. If you go into any situation and your expectations are super high, and if anything happens, you're going to get bummed and you're going to drop. But if you go into a situation or into a meeting and your expectations is, yeah, they're probably going to say no, or okay, if they do say no, how can I get them to say yes? But once they say yes, you're going to be like, you're going to be excited, or, when you get a deal done, you're going to be excited if you have low expectations of it. And if they come to you and say no, well, you already had low expectations. So,
Agreed.
I mean, I hear like staying level-headed, I think the gist of the whole thing, right? Like I remember this, like I was trading in the options market, stock market before I got into real estate. And one of the things options really taught me was to not get too excited when I make money, right? Because there would be a damn dip after.
There's always something.
And I remember this, like, the first time I think I made $50,000 on a trade. I was like, whoa.
You were going to the...
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
it was great.
put it all on black.
And, it was just this highs and lows. And I realized money or anything else can't determine my emotions, right? Like I need to be in control of them, right? You can't let external situations determine how you feel on the inside. I think that was my takeaway from there. Whether it's money or success of any form. And listening to Rodcliffe today kind of reinforced that, where he told, he had everything going. He had like 800 houses and everything. He lost $50 million in 2008. So it was kind of like this, I'm invincible to, I have nothing. It's like a reality check, right?
Crazy.
So
you're allowed to be done for a little bit if that happens.
A little bit. But I think the moral of that story is you need to stay level-headed and not get overwhelmed or, caught up with success, right?
Yeah.
Just focus on.
Don't get arrogant. Stay humble.
Stay humble. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, I want to ask, what is the one thing that, for me, the one thing that's changed my life is taking complete responsibility for everything that happens to me, right? Tony Robbins has been very impactful for me for this journey. And I think I always believe that life is happening for me and not to me. So can you share with the audience today, what is that one thing, like this aha moment or whatever, that changed your life? Trick question.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I've had a lot of those.
No. I would say, I love Tony Robbins. He's a great guy. I also love David Goggins. He's big about mindset. And I think really owning your own time is very important. One thing I was thinking, and there's a big difference too, is being productive or being busy. When people ask you, how was your day? Yes, my day was productive. I got stuff done. David may wake up at 9, but if David's more productive than I am, he's going to succeed at a different level. Even if I woke up at 2 a.m., he's going to succeed at a different level if he's more productive than being busy. So I think the biggest aha was really valuing the time in a day, because we all have our own 24 hours, and ensuring during that time slot that I'm being productive and I'm not being busy, and being productive on the path to reaching our overall goal.
And I think that's very in line with the book 4-Hour Work Week. If you guys have read it, Tim Ferriss, right? Yeah. So it's kind of like, most of us get caught up in busy work, not productive work. So yeah, I think important point there. You guys, Dylan, David, any thoughts there?
So the question being the moment that sort of changed things.
Aha moment, yeah.
Click moment, yeah. I mean, lately I've been on the same path for several years now, so I haven't had any serious aha moments recently, but I think going back to the story that I told in the beginning, when I remember, the specific morning when I went from partying all the time in college to really trying to turn things on and take
You
life
guys really
seriously.
partied in college.
Oh,
I
dude.
didn't party that much.
Oh yeah.
I
It's
dropped.
bad.
I dropped out too. This should be like drop out to success. But
You
I
dropped out too?
Yeah.
Damn it. I tried to drop out. My parents didn't let me.
No, I ran track,
I
so I
did.
guess that's why. But
That's
no,
hilarious.
I dropped out. But yeah, I mean, you guys partied a lot.
Yeah. So
like
I
a
got
party
evicted.
crowd.
I got evicted from my one house, and then I was living in a closet of someone else's house on this little mattress, and I could, I had all my clothes stuffed in the corner of this little closet, and it was miserable. And I woke up one morning and I was extremely hungover, and something just hit me that morning. I was like, something's different. Like there was a book that my dad gifted me, that James Altucher Choose Yourself book, that was sitting next to me, and like I'll never forget it, because I remember just picking that up and reading, like, I think I might have read the whole book that one day, and just started to really think to myself, like, I need to be intentional for my life and be like, build life as I'd like to, and stop kind of following this, like, just go with the flow mentality that I had up until that point. And from that day, I really turned it on. And I think, like, if you saw me like a few years later, people, you probably hardly recognize who I was. Like, I talked differently, I sounded differently, like everything was able to change. So I think, it's pretty cool looking back then.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Anything
I would say it's just a string of aha moments. I mean, from, really what got me into real estate was podcasts, listening to Bigger Pockets. And I was doing a banking internship, and I was talking to one of the other interns, and, I was listening to music when I'm driving, and she was like, wow, you should check out the podcast app. This is in 2016. I don't even know what a podcast was. It's kind of, I feel like they were around for a while at the time, but they're still kind of new 4 years ago. And so I was like, oh, cool. And they are, they were all listening to like entertainment ones and whatnot. And I went right to the business section. So I wanted to be successful, and I found Bigger Pockets, real estate. I liked real estate, and I listened to it. So that was an aha moment for me. I listened to a podcast, and a guy locally in Michigan where I grew up. He lived, in the same town I was living in when I was going to school. And he was a rock star, flipping homes, doing small commercial deals, stuff like that. And I had an aha moment. If somebody, I can hear all these people doing it, but somebody in my backyard that lives right where I live can do this, I can do it. Next aha moment for me was like, I used to write my goals every single day. I still wish I did. I read them like, a couple times a month now, but I used to write my goals every single day. I have notebooks upon notebooks filled of these things, hundreds and hundreds of goals written down from 2016, 2017. He's got them. And so I look back at it, and I still have my notebook. I should frame it. And I've got it where my first couple weeks, every day I was writing down, I want 10 units, 10 single family homes by the time I'm 25. And I was like, dude, this is a huge goal. I had people tell me I was crazy then. I read the 10X rule by Grant Cardone.
Mm-hmm.
And I that next day, it's May 16th of 2016. I wrote down, I want 500 units within 3 years. 3 years later, that was May 16th, May of 2016. In April 14th of 2019, I closed down a 136 unit deal in Fort Worth that put me up over 500 units. A month ahead of that 3-year goal. And it gave me chills. I was moving.
I got goosebumps. I just got goosebumps.
Oh my God. I was like moving, and I found this notebook, and I'm like, holy shit. I didn't even think about that. I didn't even realize it, because my goals already, at that point, my goals already changed to 10,000 units or whatever. So it was nuts. And if I didn't read that one book that gave me that idea to change, just literally to write down a new goal and change my mindset and form my new actions, like, I'd still be like, I turned 25 in 2 weeks. I'd still be like trying to buy single family rentals. Like, what?
Wow.
So it's crazy.
I have to agree with David. Writing down goals. On my phone, I have my goals on my lock screen and on my laptop. So if I'm having a low day or something, I look and I see it, and I'm like, well, I haven't hit it yet. So I need to get back to work.
Put your head down and work.
So
that's amazing.
Every time I look at that.
Goal oriented, put the stuff you want to achieve in front of you all the time, right? Remind yourself. That's amazing. So Let's go to the next question I have for you guys. We have some young teens in our audience today. So I'd like them to kind of take a personal piece of advice from you, right? You guys are all young, successful. What did you wish someone had told you early on that might have made it, I don't know, even better, or, you know, change your journey in a significant way? What is it that you've learned which you could tell like a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old? Yourself, let's say you were 14 or 15, what did you wish you had known back then that would have changed maybe your journey?
So I
or
think,
maybe you love your journeys the way it is, whatever it was.
yeah. Well, I love I love my journey. If I wouldn't love it, I don't know. You know, I'd be in a different journey. But the advice I would give to someone who's younger, you know, when you're younger, you think you know it all. And you really need to be open-minded. No matter if someone tells you no, you need to see it from their angle as well. That's why I always recommend the book Think and Grow Rich, because Andrew Carnegie, you know, see it from different angles. And when I see a deal, or when I see a situation or anything that's brought to me, I try to see it from, if I put it in a circle table, I try to see it from every single angle. So when you are younger, open your mind up, and if someone is talking to you, try to see it from their angle. Don't always, you know, have those blinders on and say you're always right, or, you know, have that type of mindset. See it from their angle as well. I think that is tremendously important. When it comes to goals, I'm a firm believer of, if you have it in your mind, you'll be able to accomplish it. My goal is to create the next BlackRock, Blackstone, Carlyle, Apollo Global. We'll be in Asia on our 4th fund. I'm already learning about Singapore's real estate over there right now. And people tell me, no, you're not going to reach those goals. Or I've had people tell me it's going to be hard for you to create a fund during the pandemic. Even BlackRock CEO Steve says that it will be nearly impossible to create a fund during the COVID-19 and raise capital. So I can't wait to prove him wrong and send him an email to ask him to let's go to lunch once I prove him wrong.
Let's go.
So he should owe me lunch once I prove him wrong with that. But you also have to see it from their point of view. Now, if you have huge goals that are not attainable, you know, you do have to be realistic. But shoot them for the stars and just keep going after them. That's what I would say.
That's amazing. David, Dylan, any thoughts?
Dylan, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. So I would have just gotten started sooner as a whole. Like I think if I look back at where I was in my teens, I was kind of just focused on doing what was like the normal thing to do at that age, like in a normal, you know, public high school in upstate New York. It was just like, you know, we were just kind of going to school, putting our head down, partying on the weekends, having fun.
Don't
right?
party in college.
Yeah. But I think I think you kind of live when you're growing up on like this someday island of like, you know, like someday I'm going to graduate college and then life's going to start. And then I'm going to have to learn how to work. And then I'm going to be functioning at a job and making money and leading this kind of thing we perceive as a career. Right. And I think I wish I could have had more of a growth mindset. We'll say there's a great book called by Carol Dweck called Mindset, about talking about like fixed mindset and growth mindset. And I think what really changed when I was about 19 was I really started to adopt the growth mindset and realize that every single thing that I do, the more I do it, the more I focus on it, the more I practice, the more I can grow, and kind of like being open to the possibilities of what's possible with the proper investment of my time. So I think if I were to look back and say, you know, if I were to have instilled that growth mindset into me at say 13 years old, I would have been, you know, much more amped to realize that I could achieve some insane things if I bust my ass for the next 7 years and pour into whether it be real estate or anything, you know, at that time. Even if, you know, maybe if at that age you're not into business, like go try to be a DJ or do something like that. Right. And just, but really put it on, put the time in, right. And actually give it your all, like find something you're passionate about.
Make that your one thing.
Yeah. And then just, believe that, you know, if you really invest that extra time and do, and kind of be the outsider sometimes, like your friends are all hanging out on the weekends, you're making time to invest into yourself and work on your own thing. But taking pride in that, not falling victim to, you know, the peer pressure at that age. So
that's great advice.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, I think I gotta almost stick with earlier. Like one of the biggest things for me was changing up my group of friends, right? From the crowd that was partying to the crowd that was hustling. And so, I mean, that's monumental for me. Really was changing the people I hung out with, and then the other thing is focus. I think I'm very lucky that, you know, I tried several business ideas that were obviously failures and didn't work out before I got into real estate. And I think the big thing is try some things out, but really try and look for something you love doing. And hopefully that's real estate, because real estate's awesome. And if it is real estate, focus. I think, you know, one of the greatest pieces of advice I ever got was to focus. And it's so simple. And it seems almost rudimentary, but it's much more important than you think. Focus can be as defined as, you know, don't try and do single family deals and flip houses and at the same time try and buy multifamily. Focus on one. Pick one thing and get really, really good at it. And I promise you, as long as you're working hard at it and you're smart, there's no way that you won't see success over a period of a couple months or a year or 2 years. And there's no reason you can't see absolutely incredible success over a couple of years or a decade. So really focus. I mean, I see so many people that bounce around, that try 5 or 6 different things, that never see success. And really just because they haven't seen a check in their hand yet, you know, doesn't mean that you haven't created some sort of progression or you haven't progressed or achieved something, right? There's a lot of other, you know, ways to define success other than just money. So you really need to stay focused, realize that it's going to take 6 to 12 months of working 80 to 100 hours a week of literally all out work. And, you know, before you see some level of success. I remember when I was in college and I just started my business, I was taking 15 credits at school. I had a girlfriend and I was working 80 hours a week. I was waking up, I was working from 8 a.m. to 4:30. I was going to class from 5 to 9 at night. And then I would go back and I would work from 9:30 to midnight or 1 in the morning. And then on Saturday and Sunday, I'd put 8, 10 hours in on every Saturday and Sunday. And I would work all through class. I wasn't even paying attention in class. I was a D+ student. I barely got through. So I wasn't a dropout like you guys, but I was close.
Hey, no student loan.
Hey, you just stayed because your parents were like, no,
Yeah,
you're not dropping out.
I wasn't as cool as these guys, but but I stayed focused. Like I didn't look at other things. I mean, there were a couple times and I feel like I got so off track because I tried to go do a senior living deal instead of just multifamily. And it took me off track for 5 months and I didn't get any deals done, but I learned so much about senior living, which is awesome. But if I just stayed focused just on multifamily, I would have gotten that much further ahead. So
it's funny,
focus.
David, when you started talking earlier on, I was thinking about like what advice would we give to them, and I wrote down focus in all caps, like in the very beginning of this call. That was like the
focus, man.
First thing I wrote down. I couldn't agree more. The difference. You won't even know that you're sabotaging your own success because you're dabbling over here with like cryptocurrency. And that 10% of time you're dedicating towards cryptocurrency is taking away 100% of all potential results. It's just crazy how it works.
And the only reason you're doing that is because you want short-term money.
Yeah.
Short-term money. I made less than $20,000 my first year in real estate. I made less than like $40,000 my second year in real estate. I could have been making 6 figures working for Goldman Sachs, but I didn't.
No.
I took the patient route and I became a millionaire within 3 years. And that's because I chose to focus on one thing and be patient.
There's a book, Gary Keller, CEO of Keller Williams, wrote The One Thing.
The One Thing.
Yeah, read it.
It's a great book.
You know, it's I always like to say is that, you know that saying, the grass may not be greener on the other side. Well, you just may not be looking at your grass at the right angle. You may need to step to the side and look at your grass because focusing on your one thing is key. Yeah.
That's so true.
The One Thing. Good book.
There's actually a lot of someone who asked, what are the books that you guys like? And I actually was noting down all the books you guys were talking about. It's Think and Grow Rich. I believe that's Napoleon Hill.
Yes, it is.
Growth Mindset. I don't know who the author was for that one. Okay. And then Rich Dad, Poor Dad, of course, everybody talks about that. That's Robert Kiyosaki. And 10X Your Net Worth, or what is it called? What is the 10X book called?
Oh, it's called the 10X Rule.
10X Rule.
Yeah.
Grant Cardone.
10x rule. It's just 10x everything. Yeah.
And the one thing is Gary Keller.
And
Yep.
Mistakes Millionaires Makes, another great book. It talks about millionaires and people who had a net worth of 600 million and loses everything and then gains it all back. And it goes into detail too of what type of insurance you need and stuff like that. So it's good. I like it.
Another good book is it's called Never Split the Difference. I've read it like 7
I've read that.
I've heard that. I have
Warren
not
Claff.
read that.
It's amazing. Chris Voss is an incredible negotiator.
Voss,
Yeah, Chris Voss. I love negotiation. I will say one thing. I'll provide an alternative viewpoint. These guys are probably significantly smarter than I am, and that's because they read a lot of books. I honestly, I read the first book like a month ago that I've read in over 2 years. And I stopped listening to podcasts about 2 years ago. And I think a lot of people would say I'm crazy. You hear about Warren Buffett and all these people that, read a book a week, and they're absolutely brilliant, probably smarter than I'll ever be. But what I think is that I'm a practitioner. And a lot of people will get caught up in, they'll go to seminars over and over and over again. And I'll see them at the same seminar. I go to a lot of Rod Cleef seminars. I'll see the same people, and it's like, yeah, what'd you do? What happened in this last one? They're like, well, I'm still working on it. It's like, well, you shouldn't be here then. You shouldn't be reading books. You shouldn't be listening to podcasts. Every hour you should be putting a deal together.
Yeah,
because that's what you're going to learn. Yeah. Go read books and educate yourself, but then take action, do something about it. If you keep reading books, you should always be reading books. Don't get me wrong.
It's like analysis paralysis. Like a lot of people keep learning and learning and learning, and they're like, okay, when are you ready?
Then they spend $20,000 on coaching and whatever, and then it's like you never get anywhere. Jump, go do something. And so, picture 80 hours a week. Seriously, picture 80 hours a week of zero busy work, and that's my life for 4 years straight. 80 hours a week of zero busy work. That's 12 hours a day, Monday through Sunday.
So success doesn't come easy.
What are you doing in that? What are you doing in that time period? That's not you got to be doing something, like looking at deals, analyzing, running numbers, talking to people, asking questions, like Dylan said, building relationships. That's all it is.
Yeah. And when you start to grow business, Monday I was on a phone at 9:00 with Singapore people because they're 12 hours ahead. And it's almost 10:00 Eastern Standard Time, and my family's at the house. I'm at the office. So,
mode.
It's like you just got to keep going. But, you do need that time balance, and you do need to know when you need to, have your brain rest so you can, then push yourself harder.
No rest for the wicked.
Great points. So we had 90 minutes. We are 10 minutes away. So I'm going to wrap this up with a quick question on where do you see yourself 5 or 10 years from today? Like, what's next in your journey? Just a quick overview of what you're thinking ahead, like what's ahead for you.
So for us, things changed drastically during COVID, for the better. We pivoted to creating a very large fund. And so in the next 10 years, I would like to be over 50 billion assets under management. So we're pivoting towards the fund. Our third fund will go into Asia. We'll focus very heavily on the Asia market, Singapore being a big focus over there. So my goal with the QC Capital is to become the next BlackRock, Blackstone, Carlyle, KKR, Apollo Global. Awesome. We're going to be doing that with funds and partnering with very large institutional investors like pensions, endowments, sovereign wealth funds, foundations. So that's our goal.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would love to. I love the fund model. I think it's awesome. I look up to Ray Dalio and Steve Schwartzman, a lot of those guys. I would like to be the guy that Chris invests with, and I can make Chris and his investors a bunch of money. I would love to bring him a 1,000-unit deal and say, hey, Chris, I need a $40 million check, and he writes that check.
In our fund, we do have an option, because I'm all about options. Our fund, we're allowed to partner as JVs too. So
fantastic.
Find the deal if it makes sense.
And we'll do that.
All right, a partnership right here. Awesome.
I want $1 billion in real estate. I want to be 100% owner. I want to eventually not. Now I'm buying my first deal ever right now without investors. It's just 20 units, but my goal is to eventually not have to use investors at all, so I control everything. But I'd like to have 10,000 units within the next 6-7 years. The next 5 years, I'm building a $100 million software company, and that's my other thing.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Wow.
Well,
What about you, Dylan?
I would say my goals are very much in alignment with the both of you guys, probably somewhere in between. I think long term, I plan on having a nice personal portfolio that provides freedom and security, but also want to continue to work with investor money. I like people. I like running an organization. One of the book that inspired me the most is Principles by Ray Dalio, like Dave just mentioned. That book, really inspired me with the sense of like creating an idea meritocracy, which basically it takes away like the bureaucratic, like top-down leadership that we see in most companies, and really allows you to surround yourself with people that are truly focused on letting the best idea win, and taking like working with people that are kind of low ego, low hierarchy, focused, and more just focused on just bringing good deals to the table and seeing what works, and kind of like pivoting and growing as a company like that. So that for me is something that I've always been really drawn to and really passionate about, which is probably part of why I want to continue to work with investor money to grow an organization where we're doing deals all across the country. I don't think I'm going to be only in apartments. I'm already putting out offers this week on mobile home parks, and I think I'm just going to stay flexible and open-minded to where the opportunity presents itself, and see where it takes me.
Awesome. I have one more question, and I can't help myself. I want to ask you guys, I know we've talked a lot about work, and mindset and all these cool things. What do you guys do for fun? Just like a quick one-liner.
I like to hang out with the family. I like to work out and grill out for them. So
I love spending time out on the lake.
Jet skiing.
Take a boat out, take some jet skis out. Yeah, get some jet skis. I like cars. I just bought my first, I guess, supercar. So I love cars. So, and then hanging out with my girlfriend.
Awesome. And Dylan?
Yeah, it's usually just connecting with friends. Make time. Usually I try to make at least like two times a week, where one where I'll connect with friends, and then two where I'm just getting outside and just doing something, whether it's hiking, going down the lake, or going on a boat, anything like that. Usually just helps me recharge. Those are the big ones.
Awesome.
No more frat parties.
No drinking.
Nothing crazy anymore. Nope.
Hangovers.
It's pretty boring, honestly.
Awesome. I love talking to you guys and learning all about what you guys do, and hope the audience as well did learn a lot from you guys. I think it's important to have like a balanced, well-rounded life. And I just want the audience to know you guys always don't work. You guys have fun too. So anything else you guys want to share before we close? And I think we have a few questions we'll go through really quick. We have 5 more minutes and we'll wrap up. Anything else you guys want to share with the audience? Any words of advice? Anything I missed?
No, thank you guys for being on here and listening to our stories, and just never give up. Keep going. You will have those days where you may feel like you want to, but just keep pushing. I promise you.
And stay in school. Just because Chris and I left, doesn't mean you have to do that.
The funny thing is,
it's not a proven path. I would have, if I were to look back at myself, I think I was young and a little bit, naive at the time. But I'm not really advising that.
I dropped out, and this is my 4th year mentoring my previous business the business department for my previous college, and the dean just says, "Don't tell him you dropped out." And I said, "I won't ruin your clients."
That's awesome.
Yeah, we don't want to set that precedent, right?
Yeah.
You drop out, you'll be successful.
Yeah.
Maybe take a year to figure out what you want to do, but I think for a lot of people it makes sense.
Right. That's really inspiring. I think the audience all want your numbers, or at least contact information. So if you can just type it in the chat box for them, they can have it. But I'll just go through quick questions here. Phone numbers. Okay.
If you go to my website, you can set up a call.
Yeah, you guys can go to QC Capital, Obsidian Capital, and Requity Group. And I'm sure you can find it. And a couple of questions here. What would you do that your parents did with you or did not to educate your kids on financial education, freedom path? I'm not sure.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So me personally, My parents were not wealthy. My mom really worked her butt off. My father had multiple jobs here or there, and they were in debt, a large amount of debt. So they didn't teach me. I think they actually taught me, how to manage money, but not the right way. So I learned that you don't manage money that way. So I figured out, how do you manage money properly? And I taught myself. But one thing I did at a very young age, and will never forget this, is I was 5 years old and I would always dress up in suits. And I would go to work with my father. And even during elementary school, I would, back then, the nurse just felt your forehead and said you had a fever, go home. So I'd run around at recess, go into the nurse's office, wipe my sweat off, say I have a fever. She'd feel me. She goes, call your dad, you're going home. You got a fever, you're sick. So I kept doing that. And my dad finally just said, you just want to come to work. And I said, that's all I want to do. I want to learn business. So he just kept taking me at a very young age. And I think that's
awesome.
how I grew up very quickly. And I'm an old soul. So I would say if you have kids, just have them be a fly on the wall, just take them with you and just have them listen to everything you do, and have them soak up all that information, and it'll be tremendously helpful.
And kids are always listening to you and following you, even when you think they're not.
They're smart.
Oh my God. My daughter is always like, I have to, like, she's sneaking in and listening to what I have to say. So
that's
watch
awesome.
out. What you do is what your kids will probably do. So.
Women are hard to raise. I know. I have an 8-year-old going on 21.
They're too smart for us dudes. That's
I have a 15-year-old going on 30. So that's about right.
That's awesome.
Anything else, you guys, before we wrap up? I think with all the experience you have now, one more question. If you were starting all over again, how would you go about restructuring and financing your first deal with little or no money?
I would take more equity.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, because I gave up, I gave up more than I should to the other business partners so I can gain experience. But I knew that going into it, and I was prepared for that, giving up more than I should act, because I don't have the experience. So I'm willing to give up more so I can gain that experience, because I'm always thinking long-term. Because down the road, I'm going to have all the equity, or a large piece of it, because of my experience and my knowledge. So I gave up a lot of equity at the beginning for that knowledge to help me down the road.
Yeah, I think you said a very important thing there, long-term, right? I mean, this is a long-term business. This is a relationship business. And it doesn't matter if you get shortchanged or you think you're not getting paid enough for the first deal. You're just getting started, right? It's just take what you get and run with it.
Yeah, ignore my comment, because what Chris said is exactly what I did.
I always say, and I have a intern who's here, who's also our investment analyst, and when I was talking to him, who cares if you're not getting paid? You're getting paid by knowledge, and you're keeping that knowledge. Money will come and go, and it will flow, but the knowledge, you're actually keeping that, and what you do by taking action is your future. I mean, simple.
Warren Buffett's after Warren Buffett graduated from school, he went to his mentor at the time, who was what's his name, Benjamin Graham, and he went to him and said, "Hey, can I work for you for free?" And he said, "Free is cheap. Free is too cheap, right? Like you're actually overpriced at free, right? Like you need to pay me to work for me," type thing. And I really think that's true in a lot of cases, right? If you can find the right mentor, someone to latch onto, especially if you're young enough to where you don't have to go get a full-time job right at the gates, and you don't have a heavy overhead. Find the right mentor and learn from them and work for them for free. You're way better off than trying to just figure out through the trial and error, at least in my view.
Add value to them. I mean, that's what I did. I found the closest operators in Charlotte, and I said, "Can I drive you to your property so you can work in the back, so I can learn what, and just listen?" And I went to their properties, and I was just a fly on the wall. Every time they did a walkthrough, due diligence, and I drove them everywhere across both states so I can learn from them, and then I gained that knowledge and took action with it.
That's amazing. Add value. I like that. I really do. So overall, guys, I mean, I'm amazed. I'm inspired. Really, like
One
you
last
guys
piece
have.
of advice.
Yeah, go, David.
Integrity. Be a good person.
Yeah.
Don't take a quick buck and screw over people. Like, be a good human being and work
Right.
with good people.
Yeah.
That's the end all be all.
Yeah.
Love it.
And this is a business, right? That's absolutely critical because, you know, one wrong thing you do and word of mouth matters.
Oh, yeah.
Like people,
Mhm.
And
people
don't
learn
go,
really quick.
yeah, and don't try to overdo it because you're young and feel insecure. In some ways, be okay being the young person. People want to teach and they're okay with you not knowing. I think where people can rub people the wrong way is when you try to act like a big shot and you try to act like you know everything and you clearly don't, and it's very apparent to everyone in the room. Be okay being the one, but show that you're ambitious and eager,
You're willing to learn.
and you're curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it, guys. Consistency, risk-taking, passion, mindset, surrounding yourself with, I mean, I've been writing down everything you guys have been talking about, surrounding yourself with the right people, you know, just staying humble, adding value, keeping your integrity, just all really, really amazing and important things in this business to succeed in any business. It doesn't matter whether it's real estate or succeed in life in anything you do. I mean, amazing. Thank you guys so much for sharing all this with the audience. And we are right 4 minutes over, but thank you everyone for joining. I hope you learned something from our amazing speakers here. And thank you to Chris, Dylan, and David for being here today and spending
Thank
time
you.
with us and sharing all your amazing stories. And just, you know, it's really inspiring. And David, I got goosebumps when you're talking about that deal. Really, I just
Yeah,
like,
it
wow.
still blows my mind. Yeah,
That's amazing.
It's incredible.
I'm so happy for you guys, and I'm excited to see the successes you'll have in the
The
future.
beginning.
And yeah, just the
We'll all
beginning.
do it
You guys
together.
have, yeah,
We all
it's
grow
amazing.
together.
Thank you
Yep,
guys for being
agreed.
here.
Thank
Take
you
care.
for putting this together. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
Dylan,
so much.
Chris.
Bye.